Hey there guys, how you doing? You look great. So, the Switch. Let's talk about the Switch some more. We haven't talked about it nearly enough, right? Well, the more I play it, the more something becomes clear to me. When it was first announced, I thought the hybrid aspect was a good one, but I wasn't 100% certain that I would get a lot of use out of the handheld mode. I liked the idea of big games on the go, and when I was a kid or in college, this sort of thing would have changed my whole world. But now, as a crummy old adult with very little time and with, like, stuff to do and cars to drive when I'm out of the house, I had to wonder just how useful the feature would be. Is it that important that I can play in my bedroom or the bathroom instead of just plunking down in front of the TV? Is the feature worth paying for? And it turns out the answer is, oh my gosh, yes. Like, it's really hitting me just how much of a game changer this is for me. So, I want to go into some detail and talk about why I think the Switch's hybrid nature offers a unique opportunity for Nintendo, and why it just might end up making all the difference in the world when it comes to sales. The most obvious use for a console like this is during times when you need to do a lot of waiting. Funny enough, I just went on a family trip and was able to really test it in this regard. Family trips naturally mean a ton of driving, which is normally just agonizing. It's made a little better by the fact that I carpool with my family and there's usually someone else who feels like driving, but with a 10-hour trip one way, the boredom can be extreme. How fortunate then that this time I was equipped with a Nintendo Switch and a wonderful Aki brand battery that I will be reviewing soon. And I gotta tell you, man, this trip was on a whole new level. I mean, I've gone on trips and brought along tablets and handhelds and whatnot in order to mess around and pass the time, but something about having a game as huge and deep as Breath of the Wild changed everything. Like, I can easily get bored with smaller, simpler games, but games like Zelda? Well, I find that I can play them at home basically forever without getting bored, granted I have the time, so the car was no exception. I spent so much time playing Zelda during that ride, and it was glorious. Oh, but it was much more than just the car ride. Stuck in my hotel room waiting to do something? Play some Switch. Up earlier than everyone else, or later? Hey look, Switch time! Grandma's lasagna taking forever and everyone's bored and watching TV? Pop out my new case and do some switching. Instead of the usual fun but with hours of boredom type of deal, my family trip was a perfect sandwich that consisted of nothing but perfectly stacked layers of family fun and the biggest, most amazing Zelda ever. And a couple bits of grandma keeping me up with her snoring thrown in, but I guess that's inevitable. Point is, it was amazing, though like I said, this sort of thing isn't super common for me, maybe once a year or something. It's everyday life where the Switch makes the biggest difference, and it's not necessarily just because of the fact that it's a handheld, but also because of just how quickly I can pick it up and start playing it. I punch that power button and hit A 3 times, and suddenly I'm back in the game, beating dudes up and taking their teeth. This means that even someone like me, who has so little time to dedicate to playing, can rack up some serious hours. It's a matter of time management and efficiency. The Switch fills in the cracks throughout the day where I would otherwise be doing nothing. Waiting for a video to render, a pot to boil, a person to call me, anything. Even just a half hour in bed each night adds up to 15 hours in the course of a month. This is the only reason I've been able to give Zelda so much of my time. Whoa, hold it there, you silly guy, you. In your recent 1-month Switch update, you mentioned not being super into multiplayer games because you don't have a lot of time, then went on to say that you'd put 120 hours into Zelda. How do you explain that? I'm really glad you brought that up because it relates to this whole handheld thing. You see, playing multiplayer matches requires a certain amount of time and dedication. You do a ton of playing so that you can be good enough to compete, then you gotta sit down and get through entire rounds, hopefully without quitting halfway through one, then of course it can take a great big amount of doing to bring friends over for some couch multiplayer. But I can turn on Zelda anywhere, anytime, and turn it off just as fast. I don't have to dedicate myself to something in the game if it's not a convenient time for me to do so, and that's why it's so easy to rack up the hours on it. Obviously, if I wanted to do more multiplayer, I would make more time for it, and a lot of this comes down to my own priorities. The fact that my time is limited means I just prefer to spend it on single-player stuff instead of multiplayer most of the time, but you see the point I'm trying to make. It's all about speed and ease of play. Well, now you know how much I like playing Zelda in line at the DMV, but what's all this unique opportunity nonsense I was talking about at the beginning of the video? Well, keep in mind that a lot of this is based on my own feelings, and while it's not going to resonate with everyone, I'm willing to bet based on what I've observed of other Nintendo fans that plenty of people feel the same way I do. Basically, here's what I'm thinking. So ports and remasters and all that are nothing new. We are very used to seeing a game, or even an entire series of games, hopping from console to console as time goes on. I, for one, am not generally into double dipping. I bought a few Nintendo remasters that I felt greatly improved upon the originals and came many years after the fact, but for the most part, I haven't indulged much in this regard. Resident Evil 4 is a game that kind of straddles both sides of the line. I bought it on GameCube, then later picked up the Wii version for cheap because I loved the IR aiming. After that, the quote-unquote GameCube exclusive was ported to basically every platform in existence, and while the idea of playing the game in HD was tempting, I passed. 2 times was more than enough for me. But now I look at my Switch and I'm like, you know what would be awesome? Playing Resident Evil 4 on the go. Like, something about the fact that I could play it anywhere suddenly has me wishing for another port. The Mass Effect trilogy. I played all 3 games on my Xbox and I was done. I told myself even if they release a remastered trilogy on PS4, I'm gonna have to pass. I don't need to spend more money just to play those games with slightly improved graphics on my newer, more relevant system. But here I am again, looking at my Switch being like, man, if I had the Mass Effect trilogy on this thing, that would be sick! I could play it whenever I wanted! I rarely get rid of my games, and I've still got basically every game I've ever loved. But only now am I seriously considering rebuying a good amount of them if they become available to purchase. I look at my library and I think about just how cool it would be to be able to play all my favorite titles during those little bits of time I get throughout the day. I'd be able to replay Super Mario Sunshine or Fallout 3 or Pikmin 2 for the zillionth time without feeling like I was spending my time poorly. And if I bought them digitally, I could have them all on me at all times and switch between them on a whim. That idea is ridiculously exciting to me. Okay, so you're going on and on about how cool it is to finally play big home console-sized games on the go, but are you forgetting about a little thing called the PlayStation Vita? So is this like a thing now? You being the angry commenter so other people don't have to? I don't know, you're the one who writes the scripts. That's true. No, I'm not forgetting about the Vita, and I know it's been doing a lot of what the Switch does, minus the switching, unless you count cross-platform play. Yes, thank you, and it's been doing it since 2011. If you're super into Sony and the games on the Vita, then yes, you have probably enjoyed what the system has, or, had, sorry Vita owners, to offer. I'm a Nintendo guy at heart, and like I said earlier, this video is coming from my own perspective under the assumption that a good amount of the market is made up of Nintendo guys and gals who are like me. The majority of my favorite games are Nintendo games, and while there are a good number of third-party titles I want to play on my Switch, that Nintendo library is the most important thing to me. Okay, then what about the 3DS? That had plenty of big games, and you can open and shut the system just as easily, if not more so, than you can sleep and wake a Switch. Also true, but there are a couple of reasons why the Switch is on a much higher level. One is that while there were a few very large games, the N64 Zelda remasters and Resident Evil Revelations are great examples, the vast majority of the system's library consists of games that very much feel like handheld games. They're just a bit smaller to encourage ease of play and account for not having a full gamut of buttons available. Still fantastic, mind you, and tons of them very successful, but without a doubt, handheld games. And there was once a time when I felt that distinction was important, but now the tech is there. I don't want my gameplay limited by my hardware anymore. I've spent many an hour playing my 3DS, don't get me wrong, but handheld games don't often hold my attention for long, at least compared to home console ones. Take all my favorite GameCube games though, and you've got stuff I can play for hours on end, again and again. Then the second reason the 3DS was at a disadvantage compared to the Switch was that darn screen resolution. It's a little hard on the eyes, truth be told, even on the XL. It got the job done, but it always felt a little outdated when compared to other devices. Games were held back from ever looking more than just pretty good, in my opinion. So are we done with the questions? Huh? Okay, we're done. So anyway, I hope you're agreeing that this is a very big opportunity for Nintendo, and it's one of the reasons the Switch appeals so much to people who have been out of touch with Nintendo for generations. If the company really works on bringing a ton of old games to the system, it could be a huge selling point, even more so than I originally imagined. Arlo, something fanboy, something Nintendo shill, begging him to sell you the same old game a million times. Yeah, I'll completely admit that what I'm saying here is pretty funny. Do I enjoy paying for a game a second or even third time? Not really. Would I really rebuy my whole library if given a choice? I really don't know. But it's still fun to look at this from a business standpoint. Porting old games over to your new console simply so people can have them on a newer console is one thing, but this is one of the best incentives people have been given for repurchasing software. Third-party ports in particular never felt like they had much of a purpose on something like the Wii U, because most people who are into those games already have an Xbox or a PlayStation or a PC as well. But this is different. No Switch port will ever feel like an afterthought without much of a point, because playing on the go is now the point. It gives old games a bigger reason than ever to stick around. The digital revolution has already increased profit potential per unit sold substantially, but Nintendo's looking at making an absolute killing for every individual Switch that makes it into someone's hands. Sure, the retail game cards are more expensive to manufacture, but imagine if the average Switch owner dropped a few $100 on the eShop, or even more, because digital sales are nearly 100% pure profit profit. We all talk about attach rates and sell-through and whatnot, but this is a potential moneymaker that could rival the Wii, even if it only sells half the units. In this very convoluted and competitive world of game systems, where getting people to buy your console in huge numbers is progressively more difficult, at least for Nintendo, maximizing profits per unit is how you stay afloat, and Nintendo has set up an opportunity to make more than they've ever made on just one console. But that little caveat we've always got to add at the end of every Switch success-related point we ever make, they gotta bring those games. It's all on them to build that library. If the content is there, the users won't be able to dump money into the system fast enough. Anything else to add? Oh, yes! I didn't think that was a Korok, but it totally was! Cool, see you later, guys. This video was brought to you by my top patrons and world-class competitive corn shuckers. Oh, man. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry, but this list is officially too long. I'm just gonna have to do this. Boom. Well, if you like what I do and want to support my dream of YouTubing full-time like these amazing, amazing people up there do, head over to my Patreon where you can get behind-the-scenes updates on what I'm working on for as little as $1 a month. See ya! Look at those names. Beautiful, beautiful names of beautiful people.